All right. I can't keep this a secret anymore. You might think I watch all these old movies because I'm a cinephile and I'm interested in film history and how art sits in a historical context, but I really watch them so that I can learn how to seduce a woman. And the answer to seducing any woman is when you get them alone in your apartment, you pull out your dummy.
Oh, all right, but she better be good.
Al, I want you to meet Sister Fallon.
Oh, how are you, sister? Where you been all my life?
The Miracle Woman is the 1931 film directed by Frank Capra in his second collaboration with Barbara Stanwyck, their first being Ladies of Leisure from 1930, which somehow I missed in all the films I watched from 1930, but if this is any indication of their work, I'll have to go back and check it out, because I love this movie. Spoiler! We open on a congregation who has, congregated for a special service to honor their pastor by hearing his final sermon after being fired.
Reverend Fallon was not fired.
I'm sorry, not fired, but replaced by a younger preacher. His daughter, Florence Fallon, comes out instead and informs them that her father has died. Not only has he died, he passed away in the middle of writing his farewell sermon, and then goes on to inform them that they're a bunch of backstabbing, ungrateful, callous heathens.
My father is dead and you killed him! You crucified him just as surely as he was crucified! He died of disappointment, of heartbreak, of ingratitude. He gave his life to serve you, and when he was old and worn, you threw him out.
This congregation let her father down, abandoned him, and she's going to let them know it. This scene is so great. For a lot of reasons. Barbara Stanwyck, for one, turns in an incredible performance. It's not just wild rage and screaming, it's a righteous anger that has been building up inside of her for years and that she's finally letting out, all with a tinge of sadness at the very recent passing of her father. You can feel the relationship she's had with these people and how it's playing out at this moment, how they've let her down. She's terrific throughout the entire film, but this scene in particular is the standout and is a really great showcase for what she can do. It's also shocking hearing someone railing against religious people and religion like this.
You are thieves, killers, adulterers, blasphemers, and liars 6 days a week. And on the seventh day, you are hypocrites. Go on, get out, all of you!
Calling them hypocrites and liars in a film from 1931. We know that her arc, because we have seen movies, we know that her arc will lead her back to the fold, but still, this scene is one that belongs in the pantheon of Capra protagonists who passionately monologue as they stand up against injustice. Is there a pantheon, or am I just thinking of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Let me know in the comments your favorite Capra righteous monologue. Having been thoroughly disenchanted with religion and now angry and grieving, Florence is primed to be taken advantage of by Bob Hornsby, a con man. There are so many con men in movies from the 1930s, who convinces her that the best way to get revenge on all those people who mistreated her father would be to become a sham evangelist.
Most of the trouble in this world comes from people who have convictions. The answer is, don't have any. If you have none, you can assume the ones that happen to pay. You're sore at those people out there because they fired your old man and have killed him. You want to get back at them, don't you? Well, I can tell you how to do it. And get famous, and get rich. And what's more, get even.
And boy, does she. She gains a national following and is broadcast to people all over on the radio, where a failed songwriter, John Carson, played by David Manners, hears her. John is blind and is about to take his own life when he hears a particularly personal piece of Sister Fallon's sermon.
And Milton, a blind man, gave us paradise lost. It's easy to forgive sinners, but it's hard to forgive quitters.
And it inspires him to keep on living and seek out the woman who inspired him. From there, if you've seen any movie, at all, ever, from the last 50 years, you can predict where things are going. After John literally walks into the lion's den for her, the two spark up a friendship, and that fairly quickly turns into something more than a friendship. And obviously, what sealed the deal was ventriloquism. Every woman's secret weak spot. Jeff Dunham? You wouldn't believe. I'm sorry, I have to talk about this some more. Could you imagine going to a man's house? He tells you that he wants to introduce you to his roommate, and he comes out with a ventriloquist dummy? You would go running for the hills. That is genuinely scary. This man is going to chop me up and make me his dummy, or that thing is going to come to life in the middle of the night and stab me to death. It also doesn't help that this one looks like Slappy from Goosebumps. Okay, listen to me. Come here. I read Night of the Living Dummy as a child, and maybe it changed me forever, and that's why I can't let this go. I'm sorry. This isn't a Goosebumps channel. That wasn't an apology. I feel regret that this isn't a Goosebumps channel. Anyway, up until this point, Fallon has been keeping this relationship a secret, but Hornsby, who has been lusting after Florence all this time, notices that she's not as passionate about her conning as she used to be, and when he finds out about the relationship, he decides that the two of them will be going to Jerusalem. Florence tries to resist, but Hornsby blackmails her with fraud and a murder. There was a murder. I didn't mention it, mostly because it just happens to show what a bad man Hornsby is, but a murder happened. The end of the film is probably the weakest part. John concocts a plan to pretend he can see so that Fallon will think a miracle happened and stay, but he'll go away because obviously he can't keep that up forever for the rest of his life. The scene where John is trying to convince her is almost funny in the absurdity of the moment, and also almost the saddest, most pathetic thing you've ever seen, with this grown man not pulling this off, but thinking that he can.
Standing? Sitting? Standing? It's the funniest feeling. It's like learning to walk all over again. There's a picture. Why, it's the picture of your father. There's an inscription on it. I'll read it to you. It says, "To Florence, with love from her daddy." See? Isn't it wonderful?
I mean, if you're willing to throw up your hands and say, oh, the 30s, then I think it works within the context of the film. The plan doesn't work, but Florence decides to come clean anyway, and then the building burns down. Finally, we're left with Hornsby on to a new scheme. Florence has joined the Salvation Army, and John is at the doctor trying to get his sight back. Like I said, the weakest part of the film. There's a conversation between Dave Karger and Tara McNamara on TCM, where they talk about the film. I'll link the clip in the doobly-doo, and how it might have been tacked on, also the title cards at the beginning. They might have been tacked on to help pacify the censors. McNamara says in that conversation that originally Florence was supposed to die alone in her apartment, which, depressing? Yeah, that ain't Capricorn, but it might have stuck the landing more and made for an even greater film. And I do think this is a great film. Nothing else ever reaches the heights of that opening scene, but I think the strength of that scene and two great performances from Barbara Stanwyck and David Manners carries what is ultimately a sweet, uplifting drama with a sense of humor. I love how Capra can always work in some humor into something fairly self-serious like this, about faith and love. And if you have faith in me, if you love me, then you should watch more of my videos, like the ones I have linked right here. Then go watch something old other than me. And make sure to subscribe to my new Goosebumps channel. Anyone ever read Goose Flumps? Stay out of the bathroom and eat cheese and barf. I was a big Goosebumps kid. Big time. Deep Trouble.